The Grow My Cleaning Company podcast helps owners of cleaning companies just like you to grow your company and yourself so you can make more money and finally get the time and money freedom that probably got you into this business. Discover how to automate and create systems that allow you to grow like crazy without losing control. If you dig the show and want to show some love, subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It really helps. Enjoy the show. Hey, Cleaning Nation, Mike Campion here with Homero Guerra. I think that's the right way to say it. There's an H. His name is Homero, but it starts with an H. It's and his wife, Irma. Super easy to say. I don't know why we can't just make everything like that. This guy started Two Maids and a Mop in Spring, Texas, which is just outside of Houston. It's a franchise. We've helped a couple of their clients. Good organization. Started this February 2020. We're recording this December 2022. So we got coming up on 3 years. One of the many reasons I wanted to introduce y'all to Homero is A, he's a super sweet guy, and B, I think some of the transformation he went through in the last couple months since I've known him is very, I don't say common, that makes him sound like not important, but lots of you guys are going through the same problems, and I can jump up and down and beat a drum and say one or whatever. And you're like, that's just Mike. What do? You scream in a microphone. Whereas Homero's like, this dude's doing it right now. He's living it. So if you don't mind, Homero, why don't you tell me kind of because what you know now is probably different than what you came from. So I would love to hear, just because I don't know this, when you came, I don't know if you came to solve the solution that we helped you solve or not. What was your thing that made you reach out? And then we'll kind of dive into how everything's transgressed for you.
Sure, Mike. No, thank you. Thank you for that. So let me start. Yeah, I mean, we had this office, part of the franchise that you mentioned, Two Maids, since February of 2020. So it's been about, almost 3 years now with that. So we started with the pandemic. It's been a roller coaster, to say the least, with everything. But I think when we came to you and when I found out about, the program is that, we were in a really still are in a bit of a difficult situation, right? I mean, just being investing into the company. I mean, I'm a very persistent guy, excuse me, there's an alarm going on. Can you hear that?
Not even a little bit.
Right. Okay. So, it was at a point where I knew that I needed help, for sure, at this point. So I think, like we've talked about on the program, the franchise is great in providing a lot of the platforms and the systems, kind of out of the box, but they don't really teach you to be a business owner. And this is the first time for me, a business owner. I mean, I was really in corporate America, before, and I kind of struggled, quite a bit, to be honest, to make this a successful business. And that's where I came. I found about your program and been there for a bit over 2 months, already. And I'm really getting a lot of impressions, like drinking out of a fire hose, definitely.
So we'll talk about kind of what the actual problem was, because obviously I think that's what Clean Nation is interested in. I would just like to know, when you came in, did you have a thought of what the problem? And by the way, Homero's got some good growth, just the profit end of it. He's got good revenue, just no daggone profit. Maybe he's having to put money in sometimes. So really, just a big. It wasn't a little problem, and it's frustrating because you're like, I can't grow. That's a frustrating problem. I'm growing, but I can't hire, and I got to clean. That's a frustrating problem. One of the most exquisite frustrations is I'm growing with top line revenue. I don't have to clean. I'm this close to a good business. The daggone thing's just not making any money. It's a freaking hobby, or I'm having to put money into it. It's supposed to pay me. So one of my favorite problems to solve. But so generally, I think you knew, hey, I'm not making the profit I need. But specifically, when you came, did you have an idea of what problem it was, or were you just like, I don't even know what I don't know?
No, I think you're right. I mean, it's just that we've been, when I came in, we've been stuck, we've been growing a little bit, but just growing to the point where, we are making, great revenue. We had, some employees, but still, we cannot get to the next level. I mean, we're just still stuck, in a way. And so we've tried, different things. Obviously, I mean, we knew our expenses were a little bit, much, for what we needed. But just knowing what it is, so it was a little bit over the place. I mean, not getting enough, customers, or we were getting not the right customers, in a way. employees, and we talk in the program, having, the right employees, coming in and doing that. So it was a combination of things. So I cannot really put like one single thing. I think it was a combination, of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I'll give a couple bits of feedback and I'll give my perspective. And this is my favorite because I can, as a coach, kind of had how I experienced your growth, which is a little different from how you experience. And it's just cool for Clean Nation to go how it feels from both sides. So two things. One, and this is for Clean Nation as much as for Homero, I think the big thing is for all the problems we talked about, I can't get employees. I'm still cleaning. I can't grow. I can't make any profit, or I make profit, but my cash flow sucks, or whatever thing we got. It's business. There's lots of different problems. I think the first biggest problem, which you guys are going to hate, because I was like, just tell me what to do. And I promise we'll talk about some tactics. But the first biggest problem is I think we tolerate it. We just think we tell ourselves crazy stories like, well, it's a business, I'm not supposed to make money for 5 years. And, most people don't, blah, blah, blah. So then once we tolerate it, we start asking the wrong questions, or we just accept it. And we start saying, okay, but if I had to make money this year, how would I do that? Right. So the first and foremost thing that we do with clients, and I want to do with you guys, Clean Nation, is you've got to start saying, if this is what you're committed to, I want a business that pays my bills in advance, not where I have to worry about payroll and cash flow sucks and, I can't make it and I don't want to do any cleaning. How would I have to make that happen? So there's got to be a standard. And I would go so far as to go, if this dadgum thing, and here's the cool thing, guys, there are some businesses that might take 5 or 10 years, but Homero's got a franchise. Like they teach them how to do some of that stuff. The clients that go through us, we teach you how to do it. Right. So if you don't have the systems and processes, I guess you can, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But when you have a franchise or you go through our training, so you've got proven systems and processes, that story of it's got to take 5 years, that's bull crap. It's just not the truth. So I think the first thing is just drawing a line in the sand and go, listen, in the next 6 months, I'm going to make X amount of money. I don't want to do any cleaning. I'm not going to have problems with cash flow. What would I have to do to get there? And then just hold yourself to that standard. If you can't do it, do something else. Like you've got to be okay with, I think some people are like, I'll never give up. It's like, so you're just going to be in a bad business until you die, until you go bankrupt. That's insane. So first is set standards. Set some standards for yourself that are motivating. If you let yourself have, poor home, it's funny. I'm guessing you had some money from corporate America, whatever. So you could go a time either putting money in or not making enough or whatever. But you're a bright guy. I'll bet you if somehow magically 2.5 years ago, I could have taken your whole net worth and it's like, okay, Homero, if you want to live indoors, you got to make this work. You'd have figured it out. Like it'd have been painful for you to figure out. So step one, set your standards. If your standards are whatever, I'll tolerate cleaning. I'll tolerate bad cash flow. I'll tolerate not making money. I'll tolerate whatever. That's what you will in any relationship with humans and business. That's how it goes. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So once you got in, I felt the first problem was very specific, fairly simple to solve. It wasn't a bunch of stuff. But before I kind of give my perspective, once you got into the program, what was your experience on what needed to be solved and how you solved it? Like what were the big chunks that you can give to Cleaning Nation so they can kind of get some of that value?
Yeah, no, I think, thank you. The biggest thing is I was there exactly where you were mentioning and where I was at. I mean, it's just kind of great. I mean, just accepting that this is the way it is, just pouring a little bit. So kind of giving myself, okay, it will work, next, but, doing the same thing, all the time without really changing it was kind of insane. But right away, I think that the biggest thing is that with the program is really kind of zeroing in your numbers, really into our P&L, the expenses, really understanding on that. I mean, I heard the term cost of goods sold and things like that. I mean, I knew, from obviously also from the franchise, a lot of the metrics, but really understanding, and going into the numbers of details, what was really my biggest, issue that I had, right? And then, mismanagement, whatever that may be. But I think that was one of the very, very first, important things is that I really need to own, the numbers, really to really get a hold of this thing, understanding and start putting the systems in place and the goals and targets to really start making some progress on that. And I wasn't doing that. I mean, I knew we kind of had a problem. I was just really hoping that as we grow into revenue, everything will just kind of grow, at the same time. But it's just, nonsense. So because the expenses were growing at the same time as the revenue was growing.
Gosh, you're so spot on, Homero. You said so many good things I want to unpack if I can. So first and foremost, just for Cleaning Nation, before we move on, I want to give you this whole nonsense of pick a number. It doesn't matter, 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand. I'm doing 30 grand a month and I know I'm not making any money, but once I get to 50, then I'll make money.
Yeah.
Just a lie from the pit of hell. You can be profitable from day one. Now, and we coach to somewhere between a 20, 25% net profit. So if you only have a $5,000 business to expect you're going to make 10,000 in profit, well, of course that's not going to work. Right. But to go, well, 20% of 5,000 is $1,000. I should be able to make $1,000. So, and again, it's standard. So we tolerate, and here's what we don't say. I will tolerate making I'll work 60 hours a week, put my heart, soul, and passion in this thing and make no profit for the first year. We don't say that. We say, we soften it with a bunch of lies, not lies, but half truths. Well, no, it's making profit. I'm just reinvesting it all in the business. Like that makes us feel good because it's an acceptable. It's almost like when you're in college age and someone's like, what are you going to do with your life? In your heart, you're like, I don't know. I'm terrified. But you say, I'm in college and I'm getting good grades. Like it's kind of the socially acceptable thing. But in reality, you're like, I don't know that this is, not that college is bad or good. I'm just saying it's kind of a socially acceptable thing from age 18 to 24, right? And then even if you're like, I don't know, I have no skills, I have enough, I'm scared of my mind, but you're like, but I'm going to college, so it's going to be okay. Same thing as if we go, I'm not making any money, I'm terrified, is what we should say. I got to fix this. But we do say is I'm reinvesting in the company. I've been told you got to spend money to make money, but really we're just saying I'm tolerating my business not being profitable. So just gals, you don't have to tolerate that. Not at $1,000 of revenue, not at 10, not at 20, not at 50, not at 100. Okay. Yeah, lie from the pit of hell. I'm losing money per each, but I'll make it up in volume. No, you won't. And maybe in some businesses, there's some truth to that. Not in a cleaning business. That is not the truth, period. Okay. Maybe for the first 1 or 2,000 for the first 1 or 2 months, if you have to do non-recurring expensive buying supplies. So first couple months, non-recurring, not forever. But once you're 4 or 5 months in, you should be making profit, chippity chop, not 4 or 5 years. Okay. Second thing you said, Homero, that I really want to get clarity on is, I wasn't doing the accounting. I know I should. So here's what I think happens. You can tell me if this is you, Homero. There's 2 or 3 things that I should be doing the accounting. I should have a better culture. I should be on social media. I should be doing more market. We have a bunch of shoulds. And I think part of the value we were able to bring to you is there's one should that needed to be done right now. Your cost of goods sold is too high. We've got to get that fixed right now. So I think you had that mixed in with 3 or 4 of the things you felt were important. And they aren't. I'm not saying they weren't important, but one was absolutely killing you. Was that you had a kink in your hose, and then some other things down line. But until you unkink it, there's nothing to talk about. Talk to me?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's like as everybody knows, here obviously, I mean, the payroll on a cleaning company. I mean, it is really your biggest expense, right? Because you're paying your employees. I mean, it's a service business. So I knew I had a problem, that it was my biggest problem, but I never really manage it well, right? And it's a combination of things. I mean, it's just a turnover of employees, trying to not follow even the franchise system a lot of times, and then just hoping that things were just gonna work well. Started having a little bit of their procedures and things in place, got a little bit better, but still really not under control. And I know that that was one of my biggest mistake, that I've been making. So I think just the clarity to really understand that this is the number. I mean, this is really what I just can go back and manage it that way and have much better clarity and really focus into everything that I need to do to make sure that my cost of goods sold are where, and then even get better at it. I mean, as we grow and make that number even better, it's provides a lot of good clarity, in a way.
So let me ask and we get this a lot, and Homero is not like this at all, but well, I guess all clients are to a degree, but Homero is very coachable. Because there's 2 levels of this. One is, I didn't know. Everything feels like an emergency. I got a client complain, and then an employee quit, and then my accountant called with some issue over there, and then the bank said this client's card declined. So there's all this stuff and my cost of goods sold is no good. It kind of just gets lumped. So I hear you saying you kind of had an idea of this is more important than others, but we didn't see it. So the first part is, I get it. And here's the second part, which I want to get how you overcame this so we can help the listeners overcome. And this is part of the fun part about being a coach and the most frustrating part about being a coach. Like, once we take someone's money, I feel an obligation to make sure they get results and they change. So sometimes not often, but sometimes it's like, well, there's 2 or 3 things and they're all of similar priority. And, typically the client will be like, oh, I like this one. I'll do that one first. Easy peasy. Other times, one thing is just separating the signal from the noise, right? There's a lot of noise out there and there's one signal. And as a coach, you can clearly see like, you got to get the cost of goods sold squared up.
Right.
So step one is either figuring out on your own, getting a coach, somehow getting to know, is there a big kink in my hose I got to deal with? Obviously, we were able to see that very clearly with Homero's business, easy peasy. And sometimes it's not even that the coach is genius. It's just that when you're in the situation, you can't see the force of it. You can't tell that you're wet when you're in the water. Like, you know what I'm saying? Someone else that's dry can tell you. So that's step one, which you did fine on. Step two is a lot of times people go, I don't really like that coaching. I've maybe been told it before. And the reason I haven't dealt with it with the other stuff is I don't want to deal with it. It sounds scary. I've got fear, whatever. And they kind of give you the, what else you got? And for a good coach is like, until this problem gets solved, I have nothing else. Like, I've got a compound fracture that's bleeding out from my femoral artery. And I'm telling the doctor, like, now vitamins, are those really good? And the doctor's like, I have nothing to talk to you about until we stop the bleeding. There's nothing to talk about. So how did you, Homero, get from that, I know this is something I should handle, to fine, I will freaking get it handled and actually dive in and do the work?
It's a good one. I mean, I think there is an accountability process, right? By being coach, being in your program. I knew I had a problem. I knew that was, one of my biggest, but it was really, I guess I was just hoping that things will work out, at the end without really, doing that. And hoping is saying, I mean, I have, good employees. I want to do that. I want to go a little bit above and beyond, but anything that I did was not working, obviously. And obviously my numbers still, were not where they need to be. I mean, I'm still working on them, as you know. But now I have the clarity, and I understand why. And it's like you said, until I fix this problem, that we're talking about, that I had, when we're making a lot of progress now, is that I don't really have a profitable business. I mean, I have a business, but it's still not profitable. I mean, just can't, we can go any longer. So I think it's just that the accountability and having. So the other thing is that just knowing that I'm not on my own, because I've been thinking it's like, wow, I mean, everybody else is successful. I mean, I'm the only one struggling business owner. They kind of understanding we're all going through the same cycle, but I was there. I mean, I was just looking like everybody else knows. It takes 2 to 3 years, for a business to be profitable. I mean, it shouldn't. I mean, you can. And now, if I do it all over again, I mean, it will be definitely, much different.
So a couple of things you said that I want to hit. One, that hopium will kill you, right? That, I hoped and I whatever. And, I love the word hopium because I've never been done drugs, but I picture opium as just this thing where you just like lay and take it all the time. And you're like, this is just my life. And you put it with hope, like, you just kind of like put it into your body. This, like, if I just stay the same, maybe magically something will, and we just have it. It's such a ridiculous belief, but we're addicted. We can't get out of it. So I love you being like that hope in something wrong. Hope is beautiful until you put the hope in the wrong thing. Like, I hope I get some more drugs. Hope is now a bad thing. So I love that. The second thing I want to give you guys is, he said, I was in the group. So, which is great for everyone that was in the coaching, but for the vast majority of you that we're not going to be able to work with, you're like, well, that doesn't help me, jerk. So let me tell you how we get that leverage in the group, and you can try and duplicate that without the group, right? I mean, not that we don't want you as clients, but I want everyone to get results, whether we get to work with you or not. So and please jump in, Homero, if you're like, that's not really what I meant. What I hear you saying is, when I got in the group, that made me change. And I'm like, great, that helps all the people in our group, but what about the rest of them? Mine, and we do it very intentionally. The real word I would replace that with, and tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, is leverage. We got leverage on you. So a couple things. One, our program is not cheap. So if it was a nickel and asked Homero to do scary stuff, he might go, no, good luck, old man, and just keep walking. If it was $1, probably the same thing. If it was $1,000, maybe he listens a little. If it's 10,000, he listens a lot. If it's $1 million, he's, whatever. So and by the way, those who pay attention, and you're like, okay, so I should pay more for stuff, maybe, but you should charge more for stuff. So just saying. The reason Homero's a good client is because he's it wasn't cheap. And if it was cheap, even the same human would have been, Homero wouldn't have been as good of a client for half the money or 10% of the money. So get leverage. And whether you give it the money to me or give it to somebody else and be like, hey, every time I curse, I'll give you $100 bill, or every, you know what I'm saying? Like you can, yeah. The second leverage, and this is all leverage, by the way, I'm just talking the different kinds of leverage you can give on yourself. Financial is certainly leverage. It just has to be enough, right? And it has to be, because the deal was the way the financial leverage is killing him now is like, hey, I'll bleed you slow, Homero. As long as you don't handle this, you're never going to make any money, but you won't lose a lot of money and everything will be okay. And Homero's like, I'll pay that price. I'm like, I'll bleed you fast, cash on the barrelhead right now. And if you don't, and that money's gone, if you don't do anything we ask you to do, you just wasted it. Homero's like, well, hold on. Now that's expensive. So it's funny because I think the cost of that you were paying already was more than the price of our thing over time. But because of the positioning, right? Like, even if you're like, you know, like, oh, I've heard, I don't know if it's the truth. Every cigarette you smoke costs 5 minutes off your life. Well, if it's at the end of your life, you'll pay it. But if it's 5 minutes now, you're like, that's scary. So kind of it's not just the money. It's how much and who does it and when do I pay it? So make sure you have to figure out a way that the money means something to you. Because it was costing you money beforehand. It was just costing you in such a way you're like, I'll pay. Does that make sense?
It's a lot. I mean, one thing, Mike, that you guys, do very well. I mean, it's, and I didn't understand at the beginning, the part of the mindset aspect of the program, but this is, I think it's very applicable into that because, I was already, throwing a lot of that money away, not the right, but I was just, investing or I was expending so much into my business. And until I really, change and have when you mentioned the leverage or, what I think is like really, I have now that accountability, partner and aspect, in the program is that, that completely changed my mind, to understand the first is we can do this. I mean, this is doable because there was at the point where I was already, about to give up, in my business, so to speak, in investing. I was still pretty persistent, but it was something had to change, in a way. And I think what I was getting into the mindset and framing that is that it takes a lot of kind of rethinking and reframing the way I was thinking about my business, honestly, and for every aspect, from employees, from clients to the systems, what's really important, and doing that instead of firefighting all the time, in a way.
Yeah, I think that's all spot on. The last thing I'll kind of end with when we talk about that leverage, because really we just needed enough leverage to get the pain of staying the way he is higher than the pain of change. Because there's pain for both, right? It's not like there's a pain-free option. It was painful to a degree to work so hard and have a business that could be so successful and really not make any money. That's painful. Of course, diving into your books and doing the hard work of that, which I'm guessing when you dove in probably wasn't as hard as you thought it might be, but that was pain as well. So money's one way to do it. And we talked about, it's not just money, because it was going to cost them more money if you just talk about money to stay the same. It was the framing of the money. Perfect example is casinos. The reason they immediately go, give us your actual cash money and we'll give you fake chips is, if you're, God forbid, playing $100 table, you put $100 bill down, there's an emotional consequence. You're like, oh, I can't do that. But just this little black chip, that's just a piece of rubber. It means nothing. So it's not just the money. It's the money in a way that gets leverage in your life. So you got to figure out what that looks like for you. The second piece was, there's probably a better, more professional way to say it. I don't know. Peer pressure. We put you in a group of people. Homero said it perfectly. Like, he's a competitive, smart guy. And when he sees other people, the odds would say half the people in the group were smarter than him and half were dumber, but he sees most of them doing better. He's like, well, wait a second. I'm as smart, and if, that was just him going, I'm not going to let these, and again, it's a great group. We love each other. It's not like Homero's being a jerk or adversarial, but he just sees other people succeeding and going, they don't have anything I don't have to do. And so those are the two things. So I guess the big takeaway I would give for you, and then I'm going to let Homero close with any thoughts, is get some leverage on yourself, right? If you came half leveraged, right? Like if we would have come to you a year ago and said, this ain't working, let me sell you something or whatever, you probably wouldn't have worked. But when you got to the point where you're like, all right, I'm ready enough to reach out and get help, and then invest some money. And then it's like, well, because what happens, you kept taking little baby steps to leverage yourself more and more. Well, I'll reach out and ask for some help, but you didn't get help. You just asked for it. And then it's like, oh crap, if I get this help, it's going to cost money. And if I spend money, I'm going to have to actually do it. And then you kind of leverage yourself. And then you've got other peer pressure going, come on, Homero, you can do it. And you're like, dang it, I spent the money. I went to the appointment. I've got now you're kind of like, I'm stuck. It's almost like when you go to the top of the slide, you want down, but there's a line behind you and you can't face all those people walking backwards. It's less painful to just go down the slide. But if you just start at the top of the slide, so you're kind of committed by, I'm in the slide, I'm going, like say with Space Mountain when you're a kid, like, oh, I can't, I'm here, I can't get out of this thing. You're in. So Cleaning Nation, find a way. Obviously, if you find some coaching or group or something that's got a system for that, that's the easy way to do it. But if that's not for you, find a way to get some leverage on yourself, right? Find a peer group, find the financial lever that you can pull to get the result that you want. All right. Anything to add before we close it out, Homero?
Yeah, no. I think you said it very well. I mean, I think it's like, other people maybe, very well, and, they understand, other like myself, included, can use that help and the commitment and the support group and that leverage, that you mentioned. Really, I need to get this done, on that. So on that, and I love that about the program, that it's really, getting everybody to, it's just a nonstop, working in your business, to get it, where it needs to be, and I love about that,
Cool. Well, let's end with an action item that's also a shameless plug to give me $0. I think a big part that you can do right now, because I love the big ideas in these podcasts, but I like also having a little quickie, like I can do that right now. We've all heard, if you take your 5 closest friends' income or net worth, that's your income or your net worth. I would almost take out closest friends because that has some overlaid emotion with youth and brothers and sisters. Take that out. Just put the 5 people you spend the most time with. I think that's less emotionally charged. Decide who to spend some time with, right? So for us, we do, we really look to work with people $30,000 and up, at least 5,000. So if you're not quite there already, start spending some time with the people that are successful. So we've got 900 podcasts. There's a Facebook group of 15,000 people. We're on Instagram, and start surrounding yourself with people that believe what you believe and will hold you accountable and kind of get leverage on you. And find a buddy that listens to the show or recommended the show and be like, hey, maybe we could listen and discuss and talk once a month over coffee or something. So take some action. Upgrade the people that you're spending time with. And that's a great way to start with leverage. All that stuff's available completely free. growmycleaningcompany.com. Check it out now. Well, here we are, the end of the podcast, and you made it. Great job. I've got a little bonus for you for sticking through with me. But like I mentioned before, if you got value out of this podcast and you want to show a little love, subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Spotify, wherever the heck you're listening to this thing. Share with a friend. Share the love. And as a special thank you for those of you that stuck with me to the end, how about I give you my personal phone number so we can text? It's a great way for me to get to know you, your business, your goals personally. So shoot me a text now, 602-932-6431. That's 602-932-6431. I am the only one who responds to these texts, and I will personally respond to everyone I possibly can as long as this number is manned. Don't know how long we're going to keep this at the end of the podcast, so grab it now. 602-932-6431. Give me a text. Say hey. Can't wait to meet you.